Welcome back. We started talking about jobs today. Of course, the jobs we were talking about were for 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds, asking you what you thought of that. But, school year is coming to an end, graduation around the corner. Some have graduated already. And then you're in the market for your first real job, as they say, right?
Yeah.
So if you can remember back to when that was. I'm trying to remember back.
I do. My first real job out of university was at the Montreal Mirror, but it's very intimidating, right? Like I was thinking graduates right now are at a definite advantage because of the labor shortage.
Well, that's what we hear, right?
But it's still a very intimidating prospect.
Yeah.
You don't know what you should be paid, what your reasonable expectations are for, job requirements. You just don't
now that
know.
you said you remember years, I'm thinking back. I think mine was right. Yeah, it was. It was writing overnights. So from 11 p.m. overnights at Canadian Press, writing sports overnights.
Oh, wow.
In Toronto, of all places. So that's a long time ago. But what is the situation now? Maybe you're right. I mean, we keep hearing about how, if you're looking for that job, suddenly a lot of that power is in your hands as opposed to what it was not that long ago when employers got to pick and choose. ROBYN THOMPSON is a personal finance expert on the line right now. ROBYN, thanks for being with us.
Hello.
Can you start by saying, first of all, can we say that is in fact the case? Do you now, looking for that first job, have more of an advantage than you would have, say, 5 years ago?
Absolutely. I mean, the market has changed into a type job market. I think that if we look back, our first real jobs out of school, that takes me back a little while too. So started off originally in marketing. And when you go out for that first job, it is very intimidating because, like you said, it's how do you know what to expect and how do you know what you should get paid? And when you're looking at where we are right now, we actually looked at the job numbers for the end of March, and there was 1 million job vacancies as of the end of March in Canada. So a lot of employers are looking for skilled workers to come into the marketplace, people even that are still coming out of school that may have, co-ops or other work placements that have given them some work experience, because there is a demand for employees. So at this point, if you are, graduate from a school, you have some work experience, you have something to offer that's valuable, you have some room to negotiate here, and it's really in your favor.
I mean, that's kind of amazing and fantastic for those graduates to be in that position. But then I'm thinking, you used to kind of just have to take what you could get. Now, is it almost too many riches? Like the options are so wide that it could be incredibly intimidating?
It is, but I also think that at this point in time, there's a lot more tools that you can use from a technology perspective to your advantage to be able to understand and to assess the marketplace. The first place I would start is on some of these salary comparison tools online. There are so many.
Wow. So,
before you even start thinking about what your first job is, I recommend that you take a gut check. You step back and you understand, who am I? Especially this generation that's graduating from school and they're entering the workforce. It's very important for them to align themselves with a company that meets their values and the impact that they want to have. So whether that be environmental, like climate change or social change or inclusive culture. So the first step is to figure out, who am I and how do I want to set this foundation for the rest of my career? And then start to look for companies that align with that.
That's
and
awesome.
Then look at, so what are the different salary ranges that are offered for these types of positions across that sector, across different sectors? What are the bonus packages that are available? What's the work-life, hybrid? You guys have heard about that. Anyone who can work remotely from home, I'm not sure if you've been able to do that from the studio or not, but that's part of the world these days. So there's so many different parts to negotiate.
So my question was going to be work-life balance. We spent so much time talking about that in the middle of the pandemic. And I wonder now, is that over? That you think still part of the situation when you apply for that job? You want to know what that work-life balance is going to be.
The hybrid model is here to stay. If you can work from home remotely part-time and then go into the office, if that's part of your role. I mean, I think that some roles, especially if you're working, if it's a laborist role where you need to be physically on site, then obviously that's a different set of criteria. But for the most part, I think employers have found that, especially in this younger generation coming out of school, they're looking for positions where they have some more freedom in their life to be able to call their own shots. And if you're not an employer who's willing to offer that type of employee-employer relationship, then you're going to have a hard time finding skilled talent.
We're speaking with personal finance expert ROBYN THOMPSON. ROBYN, then I'm wondering, is that even more important, that quality of life and life balance? Is that more important than how much you make now? Has that shift happened?
Well, I believe that the first part, whenever you're getting into salaries or negotiations, negotiate your pay. And here, negotiate is the key word. So the worst thing that you want to do is undercut yourself from the start. because when you start your career, this is the baseline. So if you set it too low, you'll always be trying to play catch up. So when you look at salary compensation and you look at salary compensation tools, look at the benefits package. So what is the overall compensation? I think that work-life balance sort of hybrid is a given at this point. So now it's about what else is in the detail, what devil is in that detail that you need to know. And there's 3 different areas that I tend to look at when you're talking to people about looking for work. And one of them is bonuses. So performance-related bonuses are often used to attract either new employees or to incentivize current employees to stay. So this is generally you can see it inside of the salary comparison tools or when you interview with an employer. You want to ask, what is your bonus? Is there a base bonus that you're going to receive every year? If so, how much? How often? And how is it calculated? Is it calculated based on your performance, or is it calculated based on the performance of the company overall? It's very important to understand that, because bonuses, in some cases, in my client firm, they make up half the client's salary, if not more. So they can be huge, especially if they're incentivized to perform well. The next thing to look at is the pension plan. This could go a very long way. And yes, I know, they're starting out first-time work, and already we're talking about pension plans, which seems very far off. But you have to remember that time in the market and time with money is the wealth generator. So if you could start your career and have a great pension plan, and you could have that being built for you as you go throughout your life, that means more money for you to buy a house. That means more money for you to take vacations or start a family. So look for things that aren't going to benefit you just right now, but what's going to benefit you in the long term.
I just want to tell you, though, how odd that is to hear you describing this in your first job. Talk about look at your pension. Even better, bring up the bonus idea, to which I imagine an employer would have said to you, bonus? You're not even hired. What do you mean bonus? So things have changed.
They're there. It's changed, and they're there. And if you look at them, and that's why it's so important to look beyond what is the base salary, because that's the old way of looking at compensation. That is not how employers look at compensation now. It's certainly not how potential employees coming into the job market should look at it. I'm going to add another one here and say pay time off. I mean, we all work for the basics of life, but after that, we work for the things we enjoy the most. This is one of those perks where if the employer doesn't have huge pockets, pay time off is a great one that people are willing, or employers are willing to negotiate, because it gives the employee the sense, the feeling that they have some more control or time over their life and isn't a huge financial drain to the company. So, it's no longer just about what's my wage and I need to get in. Start thinking about, I have talent, I have skill. There's a lot of job vacancies out here. How do I position myself? And that's really about, talking about the value you provide.
I'm taking this all in, and I'm remembering my mindset. Like when I finally landed a half decent job in my 20s, I remember my parents saying like, "Oh, you should think about real estate, or you should think about, savings." And I wasn't thinking about any of that, Robyn, and I regret it to this day, because if you start early, you can get a pretty decent cushion going, right? But how do you get a 20-year-old or 20-something-year-old into that mindset?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because is that 20-year-old of today completely different from that 20-year-old of a generation ago?
Probably.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't have children that are that age, so I'm not sure. But from what I see out there in the world, and just from being above and observing people in our community, things like if you take a look at Instagram or social media, and that's where a lot of people in this sort of age tend to congregate and look and grow. The amount of information, financial information that are coming at people in this day and age is extraordinary. The amount of different investing platforms that are targeting towards younger students or people coming out of school, investment knowledge, investment literacy is significant. And I think that it's also for their parents. So people are having conversations around the dinner table about money and finances. And this is the first time that they'll have lived through a time where we've had inflation at highs, interest rates, rising, markets falling. So their parents are likely going through some financial conversations of their own. And it's a great time to teach people who are jumping into the world about how to manage this. And you're right, Natasha, as you start early, you kind of kick yourself later on, but if you don't know the questions to ask, then it's not really relevant. But if you know, then you can't unknow something. So it kind of gives you that leg up,
It
That's why I
definitely
think we
does.
live twice. Once to go through it the first time and screw it up, and the second time to come back and do it right, knowing all this stuff we should have done but didn't do the second time
I
around.
hope you're right.
Of course,
I
that's
hope
just
you're
my
right.
theory.
Hopefully, we don't have to come back a third time, right?
No, hopefully not. No, that'd be fine. I have one last thing to ask, and it's kind of hypothetical, I guess. Describing all the things you're now going to know. You mentioned about analytical tools available online, about what salary should be in your particular industry. Can you reach a point where I hate to ask it this way, where you're asking for too much if it's your first job?
And this is really where do your homework. Understand when you're going in, you're going in and you're understanding what the different positions are in the field you're looking for. So understand, go through 2 or 3 different salary comparison tools, so 3 or different job search boards, and look for an equivalent position. See what they're offering. I mean, I'm not suggesting you go in and say you'd like to have a 50% bonus off the hop and you want to have a defined benefit pension plan that pays you, so much in retirement. What I'm suggesting is that you look to see what the comparables are. And then from there, understand, okay, so if this is what you're asking for, why do you deserve it? What knowledge do you bring? What skills do you bring? What did you learn in school? How can you communicate that you are one of those people that provide what employers are looking for, which are things like critical thinking? Do you have the ability to evaluate and analyze information and produce a judgment? Are you a team player? Can you work well with others and provide support to teammates? Do you have any management experience? That goes a long way. Can you effectively direct other people? How are you going to provide value to increase the bottom line of this company? And if you can provide that from an articulate perspective and say, this is what I've learned so far, this is where my knowledge is, this is why I'm a great candidate, and use storytelling as an example, so things you've actually done and how you can relate that, it's going to go a long way to give you the place where you can create and negotiate a role. And, I've had those same feelings both of you had, which is your first job, you're like, oh my God, somebody hired me. I have a job. Thank God. Thank God it actually worked. But now you have some more control. You have more people looking for workers than you have workers able to fill these positions. And times have changed. So it's just about, using all of the tools that we have to be able to move yourself forward. And remember that, one of the most important parts here is about that savings rate. And it's about delaying the gratification of today for something in the future. And that's hard to do. But it's, delay the gratification so that you're starting this successful journey in your career and you're catapulting yourself into the future and taking all of these lessons with you. But the worst they can say is no. So ask. The worst they can say is no.
Right. I will tell you, based on your interview today, ROBYN, you're hired. Both
Yes,
Natasha and I agreed that
100%.
we're going to take you on. So well done.
Done.
We'll get back to you on vacation time and bonuses soon.
You're awesome.
ROBYN
Thank you. That was so
Thompson,
good.
personal finance expert with some great advice for you. ROBYN, thank you so much.
It was great to chat with you both.